Chapter 11-12. How's the battle situation? Chu Yang asked with concern. From the looks of it now, Bu Liuqing and Wu Jueqing are equally matched. Wu Jueqing has yet to use his ultimate move, nor has he used any of his true trump cards. Therefore, Bu Liuqing is no match for Wu Jueqing. The Moonbreeze couple is also no match for the Dharma Supreme. Zi Sheqing said, but from the looks of it, the three of them are not in danger. If they want to leave, although the other party has the upper hand, they can definitely leave. I'm afraid they won't leave. Chu Yang sighed. I'm afraid they won't leave. Zi Sheqing said lightly, at least, they won't leave unless it's a critical moment. Suddenly, she exclaimed and said, they're at the top of the mountain. It's a little strange. Strange? Chu Yang frowned. There's no one at the top of the mountain. Zi Sheqing frowned. Could it be a formation? Then, she said seriously, they've started fighting. It's indeed a formation. Bu Liuqing and the other two are in a desperate siege. Chu Yang's heart trembled. Indeed. Zi Sheqing frowned slightly. She cut off the divine sense probing over there, turned her head and smiled bitterly. Looks like I have no choice but to take action. This formation has isolated the divine sense. Even if I want to probe, I'll need to expend a lot of energy. Yes. Chu Yang's eyes revealed a complicated look. He said softly, after you take action this time, are you going to leave directly? Zi Sheqing turned her head and said lightly, there's no such thing as an eternal banquet. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. That's right. This sentence is extremely accurate. Zi Sheqing laughed and said, take care. She paused and said, take care of yourselves. She turned around and looked at the orchard palace longingly. She smiled lightly. She said desolately, hidden in the high clouds, I'll travel the world alone, if we meet again in the clouds. Suddenly, she floated up, her white robe fluttering in the air. She softly added the last sentence. May you sweep away the fallen flowers in Jiangnan. Her slender hands separated, and with a ripping sound, the entire space was torn apart by her. Her body paused, as if she wanted to turn around to take a look. However, she didn't turn around in the end. She let out a faint sigh before her slender figure flashed into the spatial rift and vanished without a trace. A faint sigh came from the crack. Before I leave, I'll kill you until the sky turns red. There was still a faint fragrance in the wind and snow. It was Zi Sheqing's aura. Chu Yang was still sitting in front of the stone table with his head lowered. He looked at the surface of the table with rapt attention, as if there were thousands of worlds on the surface of the table. No matter how he looked at it, he couldn't understand it. Finally, gone. Chu Yang's mouth was full of bitterness. He chuckled in self-mockery and muttered, we'll meet again in the clouds. Please sweep away the fallen flowers in Jiangnan. Where is Jiangnan? His heart ached as he cursed under his breath. That woman left in such a carefree manner. He stood up, gritted his teeth, and said indifferently, don't forget your promise. Then, he floated into the snow and clapped his hands. He said, everyone, come out. The great battle is coming, let me arrange the battle. This time, it's a matter of life and death. Everyone must be careful. Chu Yang's voice was very calm, as usual. As for Yu Yunji, he faintly felt a sort of indescribable sadness. However, he controlled himself and deeply suppressed this sadness in the bottom of his heart. The great battle was coming. How could he let his emotions get the better of him? We'll meet again. Chu Yang said to himself in his heart. On Mount Xingyun, the battle was already in full swing. Bu Liuqing and the other two were fighting fiercely. They didn't retreat at all, moving freely in and out of the formation. They were drenched in blood all the way. The final form of the formation hadn't been activated yet. Now, it was filled with human lives. The more than 400 supreme martial artists who formed the formation didn't move. Only about 200 supreme martial artists were fighting with these three people in the formation. There was a hubbub of voices and clashing teeth. Bu Liuqing and the other two were already stained with blood. However, their injuries were far less serious than they looked. It was all the enemy's blood. The Dharma Supreme and Bu Liuqing sat high up and watched, their faces solemn. Bu Liuqing and the other two didn't expect the other party to be so crazy. The Dharma Supreme and the other two didn't expect Bu Liuqing and the other two to be so ferocious. Both parties were beyond their expectations. Seeing the number of casualties gradually increasing, Wu Jueqing frowned. Dharma Supreme, in our expectations, the cultivation of these three people shouldn't be so strong, Wu Jueqing said indifferently. Now, more than 30 supreme martial artists have already died in the hands of these three people. This is too different from the plan. The Dharma Supreme also frowned and said, I have sparred with the Moonbreeze couple many times. Although I have been concealing my cultivation level, the Moonbreeze couple have not. In my impression, their cultivation level is much lower than mine. But now, it's obvious that they've improved a lot. Compared to me, they're only a little lower. How can this be? And Bu Liuqing's cultivation also seems to be a little higher than Ning Qianya's that day. This is really puzzling. Wu Jueqing snorted and said, could it be that they've collectively improved in these few days? The Dharma Supreme frowned and said, with that woman around, this matter doesn't seem impossible. Wu Jueqing said decisively, absolutely impossible. At this stage, every little bit of improvement requires comprehension of the realm. Every time they comprehend a new realm, it requires years of accumulation. How can they improve to such a level in just a few days? Unless, the Dharma Supreme also thought of the same question. The two of them looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Unless they've obtained a huge amount of life force origin energy, another scream rang out. Another third-grade supreme martial artist was kicked up by Bu Liuqing. He crashed into a rock, his brains splattering everywhere. The rock was so hard that even Bu Liuqing couldn't move it, much less a third-grade supreme martial artist. Although this Mount Xingyun was extremely hard and prevented Bu Liuqing and the others from escaping by splitting the mountain, facing the opponent's thunderous attacks, the casualty rate on their side also increased greatly. If they crashed into a rock, they might lose their limbs and break their bodies. Bu Liuqing and the other two maintained a triangular cone formation, their formation unmoving. No matter how the enemy rushed over, or how they fought, the formation of the three men never change. No matter how many brilliant plans you have. I have my own set of rules. As the fight went on, the three of them actually felt their fighting spirit soar. There was actually a very carefree feeling rising from their hearts. Bu Liuqing had a sword in his right hand and a palm in his left. His legs rose and fell one after another, acting as the sword tip of the triangular cone formation. Sword light flickered and his palms slashed wildly. His feet were even more unrestrained. Relying on his profound cultivation, he didn't care how the enemy attacked. As long as he could reach it, he would kick it. Sabers and swords would be kicked too. As long as they were kicked by him, no matter what kind of saber or sword it would shatter on the spot. The enemy would spurt blood and retreat. Those who were unlucky enough to be kicked by him would lose their lives. On both sides behind him, the Moonbreeze couple's sword light flashed and flashed. Someone would definitely lose their life. Rushing over and rushing back, large batches of supreme martial artists who had already become legends in the heavens fell to the ground just like that. They turned into piles of rotten meat. Ha ha ha. Great. Bu Liuqing laughed loudly. They're exhausting our strength. This is a great idea. Yu Lingxue waved his sword, a cold and stern smile on his handsome face. It's not bad. Sooner or later, they will be able to exhaust us to the point where we have no energy left. However, before that, these people are not enough for us to kill. We still need to transfer some more over. Foam Euro smiled and said, that's right. The Dharma Supreme is sending people over to be killed. I wonder what his intention is. On the mountain peak, Wu Jueqing frowned. Should we make our move in advance? The Dharma Supreme said indifferently, there's no hurry. It's not a big deal for a few people to die. However, the key is that woman. As long as these people's deaths are worth it, then it's not a big deal even if more of them die. Wu Jueqing's eyes flashed and he didn't say anything else. He admitted it. In terms of cold-heartedness, although he had lived for tens of thousands of years more, compared to the Dharma Supreme in front of him, there was still a certain gap. This fellow, on the surface, looked like he was benevolent and righteous, but in reality, he didn't have any humanity to speak of. The 8 super clans can't be touched. You and I can't move before that woman arrives. The Dharma Supreme frowned and said, if we really have to move, let my 2 guards do it. As he spoke, he waved his hand and said, the 2 of you, go and get intimate with Moonbreeze. 2 figures appeared out of thin air with a swoosh. The next moment, they were on the battlefield. The 2 of them, one with a saber and one with a sword, faced Feng Yuro at the same time. It was obvious that the 2 of them had been preparing for a long time. Moreover, they had the same target long ago. The array was dim and there were many enemies. The 2 of them suddenly attacked with all their might. Together with a 5th-grade supreme martial artist who rushed over at the same time, their attacks were like a flash flood. Caught off guard, Feng Yuro collided with 8 supreme martial artist experts at the same time. She let out a muffled groan and her face turned pale. Taking a step back, she looked up at the 2 of them and said angrily, it's you 2. The 2 of them said coldly at the same time, that's right, it's us. Master Feng, today is a day of vengeance. We won't rest until one of us is dead. The friendship of the past is gone. Feng Yuro snorted. If that's the case, what's the point of talking? Then let's fight. Without another word, she rushed forward with her sword. However, with the addition of these 2, Feng Yuro's side was in imminent danger. Moreover, the surrounding supreme martial artists were able to cultivate to this level. Which one of them was a fool? Seeing the opportunity, they all attacked Feng Yuro, wanting to create a breakthrough here. Both of them are supreme beings. The Dharma Supreme looked at the fierce battle below and said, although they are slightly inferior to the Moonbreeze couple, at present, Bu Liuqing's fighting spirit is high while the Moonbreeze couple's spirit has been worn down. Especially Feng Yuro, she can no longer maintain her peak. Therefore, the 2 of them attacking Feng Yuro now is attacking the enemy's weakness. As long as Feng Yuro is injured, Yu Lingxue will definitely be distracted. By then, we will have the absolute upper hand. Although that woman is not here now, she must be somewhere watching this battle. These 3 are the highest figures in the opposing camp. They will definitely not bear to give up. Therefore, they will definitely come to her rescue. By then, ha ha ha, it will be slaying of the Tao. I really don't have any energy left. I'll have a good rest and continue writing tomorrow. My heart kept reminding me to continue the outburst so that I can stabilize myself. However, my body really can't take it anymore. Please, everyone, support our proud world. Let me take a breather. I beg for votes. G. To be continued. Chapter 11-13. Before the Dharma Supreme finished his words, Feng Yuro let out a muffled groan. Blood spurted out from her cherry lips as she staggered backward. Yu Lingxue's clothes were as white as snow. In a flash, he came over and exchanged places with Feng Yuro. His long sword struck out violently. Clang clang clang. The continuous sword strikes were like a bolt of lightning, exploding with thunder. 2 of the guardians who were attacking Feng Yuro staggered backward as blood flowed out from their 7 orifices. The other 7 people's bodies trembled violently as they spat out blood. Then, they flew out like kites with their strings cut and split into pieces in midair. 7 second-grade supreme martial artists were killed by Yu Lingxue's sword. His divine soul had been destroyed. Yu Lingxue's heart ached for his wife's injury. He went all out, and his might was simply unparalleled. However, a gap had finally been opened in the triangular formation of the 3. Yu Lingxue and Bu Liuqing kept swapping positions and opponents with the injured Feng Yuro. However, the situation couldn't go back to how it was before. After all, no matter which side it was, the battle was equally intense and cruel. Bu Liuqing let out a long howl. His long sword was like a surging storm, rolling out and circling around Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro. His long sword was like a shining dragon rolling around. In an instant, all the enemies were forced to retreat. Around him, there were more than a dozen corpses. Bu Liuqing flashed like a gust of wind and stuffed a purple crystal jade bottle into Yu Lingxue's hands. He shouted, "Give this to your wife. I'll hold it off, you protect her and treat her injuries." With a long laugh, The long sword in his hand surged as he turned around and attacked. He moved quickly and formed a circle of 50 feet around himself, protecting Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro within. A streak of white light connected into a line. Anyone who dared to enter this circle would be killed by him at the fastest speed. Yu Lingxue didn't dare to be negligent. He flew to Feng Yuro's side, pulled out the cork and said hurriedly, "Take it." Then, he stuffed the medicine into his wife's mouth. Feng Yuro only felt that her internal organs were burning and she was feeling very uncomfortable. Instead, he felt a warm current flowing down his throat. His spirit shook as he asked, "What is this?" "No idea." Yu Lingxue stood with his sword in hand, focusing all his attention on protecting his wife. He looked at the surging sword waves all around him, the sharp whistling of sword energy filling the heavens and earth. Bu Liuqing, one man and one sword, blocked the siege of more than 100 supreme martial artists by himself. He actually advanced instead of retreating. Whenever the sword light came into contact with a supreme being, all of them spat out blood as they retreated. Their bodies were riddled with wounds, and those who were slightly closer were directly dismembered. He couldn't help but let out a long sigh. I had always thought that Bu Liuqing's and Ning Tiany's cultivations weren't much different from each other. But, it seems that the gap between us is very big. Feng Yuro only felt that ever since she took the elixir, her body had become much more relaxed. That warm current was like soft water flowing through her body. All of his wounds were healed. First, the pain in his dantian suddenly disappeared. Then, a warm current floated up from his dantian and entered his meridians. The pain in his meridians was also instantly healed. The wounds on his internal organs also disappeared without a trace, as if spring water had flowed through them. In just a breath's time, his body had actually recovered to its original state. Feng Yuro opened her eyes in disbelief and met Yu Lingxue's concerned eyes. She moved her lips and said, "I've recovered." "Done? So fast?" Yu Lingxue cried out in surprise. Although he had long known that Bu Liuqing's gift was definitely not ordinary, he had never thought that it would have such a miraculous effect. Feng Yuro raised her sword and attacked. She moved closer to Yu Lingxue's ear and whispered, "Where did you get the heavy pill?" Yu Lingxue was shocked. He said, "Brother Bu gave it to me." Feng Yuro had already rushed to Bu Liuqing's side with her sword and attack. Yu Lingxue had no time to be shocked. He flew up like a shooting star and occupied another position. With a swing of his sword, he cut a supreme martial artist into two. The triangular formation was formed again. All of the incoming enemies retreated. The pressure on Bu Liuqing was greatly reduced by half. He felt relaxed and laughed. "Sister-in-law, you've recovered?" Feng Yuro smiled and said, "Thank you, Brother Bu, for giving me the elixir." Bu Liuqing smiled and said, "It's not from me, but from Lady Z. If you want to thank someone, thank her." The three of them attacked at the same time. The three arrowheads of the triangular formation pierced outwards. Endless screams were heard. Almost 300 supreme martial artists surrounded them. At this moment, half of them had already died. Yi and the rest of the 8 superclans felt as if their hearts were being twisted by knives. These were all the elites of their clans. To die here just like that, if they could be exchanged for some price, it would be fine. But just as they exchanged for Feng Yuro's serious injuries, she actually recovered in the blink of an eye. How could this not make the 8-second grandmasters grit their teeth so hard? At the highest point, Wu Jueqing's white robes were as white as snow. He looked coldly at the battle below. He didn't make a move but was conserving his energy, waiting for Zi Sheqing to come so that he could fight decisively. The only thing he could do now was to continuously release the poisonous fog. Although everyone on his side had the antidote, everyone was well aware that before Bu Liuqing and the other two lost their powers, this poisonous fog wouldn't have any effect. The three of them had already communicated with the bridge of heaven and earth and their cultivation was endless. How could it be depleted so easily? The Dharma Supreme was already nowhere to be seen. In another secret place, the Dharma Supreme sat cross-legged. Wisps of white fog with hints of purple were absorbed into his body as he breathed in and out. If experts like Bu Liuqing were here, they would be shocked to see that what the Dharma Supreme was absorbing was the power of life origin. Moreover, it was the life origin of these supreme martial artist experts after they died. So many supreme beings had already died. Of course, many of them had been completely killed. Their souls had been completely destroyed. Some of them had even disappeared along with their life source. However, there were still too many who had been killed directly. Their life source hadn't had time to disappear. It had turned into pure energy and floated between heaven and earth. This portion of energy couldn't be absorbed by humans. In the end, it could only dissipate between heaven and earth, and the last bit of real spirit would also be annihilated and enter the cycle of reincarnation, but the Dharma Supreme was actually able to absorb it now. And this way, this portion of supreme martial artists could be considered as having their spirits completely destroyed. The number of supreme martial artists besieging the three gradually decreased. Suddenly, a voice sounded in the ears of Yi and the rest. "Everyone, please make your move." It was the Dharma Supreme's voice. With a long howl, Xiao Se came out and was the first to make his move. The autumn wind rustles again, unsheathing the sword. The sky is colorless. "Supreme martial artist Bu, Xiao Se is here to learn from you." Xiao Se unsheathed his sword, and the autumn wind rose and fell for thousands of miles, exuding a desolate and vast aura. Suddenly, it filled heaven and earth. The sword was like autumn water. Wrapped in the autumn wind and autumn clouds, the sword slashed horizontally at Bu Liuqing. "So Xiao Se. So it's already a supreme martial artist." Bu Liuqing's eyebrows twitched, and the sword light shook. With a loud bang, it met Xiao Se's sword. Xiao Se's body shook, and he flipped in the air. Then, another wave of autumn water came quietly. His body retreated. But the sword light was advancing. "So Xiao Se." Bu Liuqing was energized, and his sword flew, facing Xiao Se and the other 5 supreme martial artists at the same time. Riding the wind, drifting to the 4 seas to disperse Qingqiu. "Supreme martial artist Yu, I'm here to learn from you." Qingqiu laughed. His body was as elegant as the clouds, and he went straight for Yu Lingxue. The night sky is dark and gloomy. In the heavens, there are emperors. Yi came quietly, as if the night sky was even more solemn. "Supreme martial artist Feng, Yi is here to learn from you." With the addition of the 3 second grandmasters, the pressure on Bu Liuqing and the rest increased greatly. Yi and Xiao Se were both second-grade supreme martial artists, and they were conserving their energy. With this, they were almost on par with Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro after a long battle. Other than Xiao Se, who was suppressed by Bu Liuqing, the other 2 sides were already at a disadvantage. "Supreme martial artist Bu, sorry to offend you." A gust of extremely cold air seemed to come from the snowy mountains. Ling Fengyun joined the battle, and attacked Bu Liuqing from both sides. Then, Lan Muxue also joined the battle with his sword. A fierce wind came from behind. "Supreme martial artist Bu, Shijing is here too." 4 second grandmasters, 3 8th grade peak level. 1 second grade supreme martial artist, together with more than 10 upper grade supreme martial artists, besieged Bu Liuqing. Bu Liuqing only felt the pressure getting heavier and heavier. He laughed loudly. "Great, great. Wu Jueqing, it's so easy, why don't you come and snatch it? This is your upbringing, ha ha ha." Wu Jueqing snorted. "Bu Liuqing, you can talk after you've dealt with them." Then, Chen Mengkai flew out, and attacked Yu Lingxue together with Qingqiu. The Dharma Supreme's 2 guardians joined the battle again, besieging Feng Yuro. Instantly, the battle turned into a miserable one. Among the 8 second grandmasters, only Zhuge Hutu had not joined the battle. He had to preside over the array and could not join the battle. However, even so, the pressure on Bu Liuqing and the other 2 had increased by more than 3 times at the same time. Bu Liuqing could still handle it, but Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro were already struggling. They were at a disadvantage in the overall battle. "Hey!" With a muffled groan, blood flowed from the corner of Yu Lingxue's mouth. Opposite him, Qingqiu retreated while vomiting blood. She had exchanged injuries for injuries. She had exchanged her injuries for Yu Lingxue's injuries. Yu Lingxue drew his sword and shouted, Dharma Supreme, aren't you coming? Chen Mengkai took advantage of the situation and rushed forward. More than 10 supreme martial artists attacked at the same time. We don't need the Dharma Supreme to deal with you. At the same time, Feng Yuro staggered backward, but her shoulder was hit by Yi Di's palm. The triangular battle formation collapsed. Yi Di and the rest did not show mercy, and their attacks became fiercer and fiercer. The two guardians' faces darkened, and every move was fatal. In the chaotic land, Yi Di rose into the air and shouted, dripping blood battle technique. With a wild shout, the situation changed instantly. A supreme martial artist of the Yi clan shouted and rushed toward Yu Lingxue with his sword. Yu Lingxue snorted and stabbed his sword. That person did not dodge, and the sword went deep into his heart. However, that person actually reached out and wrapped his arm around the sword like a rope, but his body continued to rush toward Yu Lingxue fiercely. Around him, there were people with arms wide open, desperately hugging him. Yu Lingxue was furious and kicked out. Another person met his kick with his chest. At the same time, blood spurted out, but he hugged Yu Lingxue's leg tightly. Yu Lingxue's sword shook violently, and he exerted strength in his leg. With a boom, the person on the sword was torn into pieces, and the person under his leg was also turned into a pile of flesh and blood. However, at this moment, his back, shoulders, and thighs were all attacked at the same time. The dripping blood battle technique was to trade one's life for another. Even if you don't want my life, you will let others take yours. My monthly votes have been exceeded, please give me monthly votes. Gee, by the way, my birthday is on the 2nd day of the month. The 10th day has long passed. According to the village rules, we only celebrate the lunar calendar and not the solar calendar, haha. Therefore, please don't give me any more birthday red packets. If you do, you will really feel guilty. Chapter 11:14. At the same time, Yu Lingxue suffered a heavy blow. Blood spurted out of his mouth, nose, eyes, and ears at the same time. On the other side, Feng Yuro was also retreating. The pressure on her side was even greater than Yu Lingxue's. She was also a woman. Everyone seemed to have the same thought: women are always easier to deal with than men. Therefore, there were actually more people attacking Feng Yuro than Yu Lingxue. 7 corpses were already on the opposite side of Feng Yuro. One of the two guardians was rushing over with disheveled hair. I'll kill you, B*TCH. The other had already become a pile of minced meat. Even his corpse was not left behind. He was chopped into minced meat by Feng Yuro. Feng Yuro retreated. Yu Lingxue retreated. Both husband and wife were severely injured at the same time. Bu Liuqing let out a long roar. At this moment, those who used the dripping blood technique on him were all smashed into pieces by the sword light. But if he wanted to form a large circle by himself like before, he could no longer do so. Yi Di and the rest were energized. They attacked with all their might. He constantly urged the supreme martial artists under his command to use the dripping blood battle technique. Every time they attacked, more than one supreme martial artist would die. However, every time they attacked, Bu Liuqing and the other two would suffer new injuries. With Bu Liuqing tied down, the situation on the Moonbreeze couple's side became even more critical. The supreme martial artists flew over as if they didn't care about money, sacrificing their lives in exchange for more wounds on the Moonbreeze couple. Bang bang bang. At the same time that the Moonbreeze couple killed the 5 supreme martial artists, they were simultaneously slapped a few times by Yi Di and Ling Fengyun. The two of them let out a low groan and staggered backward. They stood back to back, but they could already feel the life force in their bodies draining away. They no longer had the strength to fight back. They could only try their best to resist. The Moonbreeze couple was already at the end of their rope. Yi Di and the rest simultaneously abandoned this side of the battlefield, leaving only a dozen supreme martial artists to attack the Moonbreeze couple. The focus of the others' attacks was all shifted to Bu Liuqing. After a while, taking advantage of another dripping blood technique, kill, the 7-second grandmasters roared at the same time. Every one of them used all their strength to attack Bu Liuqing. Then let's kill. Bu Liuqing smashed one of them with his palm, and crushed 3 with his sword. Then, he kicked the 3 supreme martial artists 3 times in a row, and shattered their bones. However, he was still forced to confront the joint attack of the 7-second Grandmasters. Helplessly, he took a deep breath. He had activated all of his potential, and his beard were all stretched out. With a loud roar, he suddenly slashed out with his sword. This sword strike. This was Bu Liuqing's true ability. The sword light suddenly expanded and a golden dragon flew out from the sword light. Then, a golden tiger appeared. The dragon and tiger worked together, shaking their heads and wagging their tails. Facing the all-out attack of the 7-second Grandmasters, Yi Zichen faced them head-on. It was as if the heavenly thunder had triggered the earthly fire. At this moment, even Mount Xingyun trembled. Sword of Dragon and Tiger. Bu Liuqing had actually mastered the Sword of Dragon and Tiger. This is a technique that can only be comprehended by a Xiantian void-shattering expert. Could it be that Bu Liuqing has already reached this level? Wu Jueqing's eyes abruptly lit up. However, he did not know that today's fierce battle had pushed Bu Liuqing to a point where he could not turn back. He had actually forced Bu Liuqing to break through this final step. At the same time that the Sword of Dragon and Tiger appeared in the sky. Suddenly, thunder rumbled. Bolts of lightning struck down violently from the snowstorm. Although Bu Liuqing had made the biggest breakthrough in his life at this moment of life and death, he had also attracted the heavenly punishment. The power of Dragon and Tiger collided violently with the power of the 7-second Grandmasters. War. The 7-second Grandmasters spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time. Each of them retreated pathetically. At this moment, their internal organs were shaken. Everyone felt that they could not even move their fingers. Especially Lan Muxue, who had not recovered from his serious injuries and was hit so hard by Bu Liuqing. His body flew up uncontrollably into the sky like an embroidered ball. When he flew to the top of Yu Lingshue's head, Yu Lingxue did not care about his serious injuries. He spat out blood and jumped up, kicking Lan Muxue's back. Lan Muxue was kicked in a different direction and flew back. He was flying towards the top of Bu Liuqing's head. There, a bolt of lightning was striking down crazily. Meanwhile, Lan Muxue's body was facing the lightning with a fearless attitude, as if he was embracing the world in his arms. Everyone exclaimed in unison. A ferocious bolt of white lightning struck down and hit Lan Muxue. Lan Muxue was shocked. He shouted, "Heavenly punishment! Save me!" But, under such a heavenly punishment, who would dare to save him? Whoever went would die. That was for sure. Yi Di and the rest looked on helplessly. They did not know what to feel. Bolts of lightning struck his body continuously from the sky. After only a dozen strikes, Lan Muxue had already turned into a piece of charcoal that was emitting green smoke. He had lost all his vitality and fell from the sky. As he fell, the lightning was still chasing after him. His bones, which had already been charred black, were flying in all directions. The heavenly punishment's lightning was probably very surprised too. This guy is obviously dead. Why can't I stop? But he did not know that this was Yu Lingshue's intention. Bu Liuqing had just fought head-on against the 7-second Grandmasters. After such an attack, Bu Liuqing would definitely not have any strength to face the heavenly punishment. After a few bolts of lightning, Bu Liuqing would probably turn into ashes. Therefore, Yu Lingxue sent Lan Muxue over at the risk of worsening his internal injuries. He used Lan Muxue's vitality to temporarily replace Bu Liuqing to face the heavenly punishment. As expected, after Lan Muxue's body fell, although Bu Liuqing was bleeding from his mouth, he managed to catch his breath and regain his ability to move. The lightning struck down suddenly. This time, it was aimed at the head of the main person. Bu Liuqing shouted and raised his sword. Boom! Bu Liuqing shouted and stood upright. There was already a black spot on Mount Xingyun below his feet. He was struck by the heavenly lightning. Bu Liuqing stood firm as the heavenly lightning struck down continuously. It was only until the last bolt that Bu Liuqing spat out a mouthful of blood. His left leg could not withstand the strong pressure and broke. He sat on the ground with a thud. The lightning finally subsided. But Bu Liuqing had no strength to continue fighting. Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro were severely injured. They supported their bodies with their swords, but they were already on the verge of collapse. The Dharma Supreme and Wu Jueqing's eyes flashed with jealousy. The Dharma Supreme shouted angrily, "Charge!" The three of them no longer have the strength to continue fighting. Charge forward and break their tendons and cripple their cultivation. Both of them knew that with Bu Liuqing's forced breakthrough, he should not have been able to survive the heavenly punishment. However, the Great Nebula Divide of Heavenly Secrets Array helped Bu Liuqing. If the Great Nebula Divide of Heavenly Secrets Array was fully activated, the heavenly punishment would not be able to strike at all. It could only hover in the sky and wait for Bu Liuqing to leave this place or the array to end before the heavenly punishment would strike. In that case, Bu Liuqing would still not be able to escape death, but now that it was half activated, the heavenly punishment could still strike, but it would weaken the array by more than half. Therefore, Bu Liuqing's forced breakthrough actually made it through. After enduring the heavenly punishment, no matter how severe the injuries were, the heavenly energy would replenish them completely within the time it takes to burn a stick of incense. Then, they would be forced to leave the heavens, breaking through the void. This was the leduo of every martial artist. The Dharma Supreme did not expect that such an ambush would actually help Bu Liuqing break through the last step. If Bu Liuqing really left, this battle would be a waste of all their previous effort. Currently, there was only the time it takes to burn a stick of incense to kill Bu Liuqing. After this time, Bu Liuqing would fully recover and be even more difficult to deal with. Moreover, when everyone attacked Bu Liuqing, the heavenly punishment would think that they were trying to stop it. Then, the heavenly punishment would strike down on everyone as punishment. In that case, they would really go for wool and come home shorn. Kill him as soon as possible. Wu Jueqing's eyes flashed. Even if you have luck, I will turn it into dead luck. The Dharma Supreme smiled faintly. For someone who has already succeeded in collapsing the heavens and is about to break through the void to die here after succeeding, I don't know if this is a kind of irony. Wu Jueqing laughed. This should be something that even the heavens did not expect. Killing such a strong martial artist with my own hands is a joyous thing. The Dharma Supreme laughed loudly. The two of them did not conceal their voices. Instead, they sent their voices far away. The incitement of these few words was really no small matter. Killing a supreme martial artist was nothing much, but killing a strong martial artist who had already surpassed this world was something that would not happen even once in a million years. At his command, Yi Di and the rest did not care that their blood was still churning violently in their bodies and that they were bleeding from the corners of their mouths. Instead, they pounced on them even more ferociously. Even the other supreme martial artists, as long as they could still move, all of them waved their weapons and rushed forward. Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro were severely injured and could not resist. Bu Liuqing had just passed the heavenly punishment and was weak all over. It seemed that even a finger would be able to kill this extremely powerful legendary supreme martial artist. The situation was really critical to the extreme. Looking at the enemies who were rushing towards them, the three of them had a look of relief in their eyes at the same time. Yu Lingxue let out a long cry and laughed loudly. Flicking his sword, he let out a long cry and said, "I did not expect to die together with Brother Bu today. How delightful, how delightful." Bu Liuqing laughed. "Damn it, so old Ning is not dead. It's a little unjust for me to die here today. However, with a good brother and sister-in-law by my side, I'm not really lonely anymore." Feng Yuro said softly, "Brother Bu is a good brother. I believe that with you by our side, no matter if it's the netherworld or the world of the living, we won't be bullied." Bu Liuqing laughed loudly and said, "Today, the three of us might as well become sworn brothers and sisters before this life and death. So what if we live? So what if we die? So what if we die?" Ha ha ha. Yu Lingxue laughed and shouted together with Feng Yuro, "Brother." Bu Liuqing agreed loudly and shouted, "Second brother, sister-in-law, let's fight it out with them. Fight it out with them." The Moon Breeze couple shouted in unison and rushed out with their swords. They said loudly, "In the netherworld, I will help my wife to pave the way for brother." "All right." Bu Liuqing shouted, regardless of life and death, we'll walk the same path after all. Fight with all your might, and we'll have no regrets in this life. In the netherworld, we'll be brothers. In the netherworld, we'll never be extinguished. To be continued. Chapter 11:15. Go ahead and pave the way then. Yi Di and Xiao Se laughed sinisterly as they charged over. Moon Breeze wobbled as they raised their swords to meet them. Both of them were already at the end of their rope. The severity of their injuries was really indescribable. In this battle, the dripping blood battle tactic had used up the life potential of both of them. Their entire bodies were already completely exhausted. Although they were charging with their swords, they actually had no energy left. They couldn't even walk like a normal person. If the battle ended now, even without the enemy killing them, as long as a miracle didn't happen, both of them wouldn't be able to survive. The only reason they could still move now was because of the primordial violet vapor. However, the husband and wife made a charging posture. Even if they had to die fighting. You want to humiliate us? Dream on. Moon Breeze exchanged a look, seeing the gentleness and determination in each other's eyes. Now, we are going to die. As husband and wife in this life, I have no regrets. Last look, remember your appearance, remember my appearance. If there is a next life, don't forget. As husband and wife. In the dark, Zhuge Hutu's eyes widened. His palms were almost sweating. In the dark, the Dharma Supreme and Wu Jueqing in the high ground were also fully focused. If that woman wanted to strike, it would probably be at this moment. If the Great Array was to be activated, it would also be at this moment. Therefore, although Bu Liuqing and the other two seemed to be doomed this time, in reality, that might not be the case. Both parties were about to come into contact. Right at this moment, a long howl sounded, like a dragon's roar and a phoenix's cry, soaring through the sky. It was as if the sky had been lifted immediately. The darkness in the entire sky suddenly disappeared. In this instant, everyone clearly heard a sound. Kai. Everyone had the same feeling at the same time, as if the blue sky above them was a curtain. Now, it was lifted by a corner with one hand and torn apart with a kai. Only then did the white snow in the sky start to fall. As far as the eye could see, it was a vast expanse of white. Everyone's eyes were on the darkness for a long time. Suddenly being stimulated by the white light, they couldn't help but squint. A figure in white stood proudly in mid-air and said indifferently, I said, stop. Tearing apart the void. Wu Jueqing gasped. You are indeed a great Dao expert. Zi Xieching had actually arrived before Bu Liuqing achieved his breakthrough. However, just as she was about to descend, she felt the heavenly might tremble and hurriedly hid herself. Bu Liuqing's heavenly punishment came at that moment. If Zi Xieching had taken action at that moment, heaven's punishment would have targeted both her and Bu Liuqing. In that case, it would only be the power of vibration. It was enough to shock the heavily injured Moon Breeze couple to death. Therefore, she could only wait. In any case, there was no danger. When the heavenly punishment arrived, anyone who came into contact with it would be targeted by it. The others didn't dare to make a move either. The Dharma Supreme, Wu Jueqing and Zi Xieching were all experts who had already surpassed this level. When the heavenly punishment arrived. Furthermore, he couldn't move recklessly. Now that the heavenly punishment had ended and the special clouds in the sky had dispersed, Zi Xieching finally came down. He murmured, although it's a little late, it's not too late. The Moon Breeze couple had already lost all their strength. The moment they saw Zi Xieching, they seemed to have lost all their strength. His body went limp. He collapsed onto the ground. Chen Mengkai and Shi Jing were the fastest. They couldn't stop themselves and rushed over. Their long swords were about to pierce into Feng Yuro and Yu Lingshue's bodies. A white figure flashed and Zi Xieching had already appeared in front of the two of them. She shielded the Moon Breeze couple behind her and slapped Chen Mengchi's face with her left hand. She said angrily, "Didn't you hear me when I asked you to stop?" Her right hand slapped Shi Jing's face and she asked, "Are you deaf?" Two slaps passed through the sharp sword light. One on the left and one on the right. The two of them couldn't even see clearly. They didn't even have time to react before they were sent flying. They rolled and landed on the ground. Their heads were spinning and they could only feel a buzzing sound in their heads. One on the left and one on the right, their faces swelled up at a speed visible to the naked eye. Yi and the rest who had just stopped retreated a few steps and pulled a safe distance away. Everyone's eyes were filled with fear. They all knew that this woman was very strong, but they didn't expect her to be so strong. One moment, she was still 1,000 feet high in the air. The next moment, she had sent 2 8th-grade peak-level supreme martial artists flying. And it was a slap on their faces. At this moment, there was complete silence. Everyone held their breaths. Yi and the rest didn't even have time to wipe away the blood on their mouths. They were stunned. Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro didn't have it easy in the battle just now, but how could they have it easy too? The cultivation of the Moonbreeze couple was much higher than that of Yi and the rest. Especially after they had consumed the primordial violet vapor, they were directly one level above them. Yi and the rest also had their internal organs shaken and blood spurted from their mouths and noses. They were about to succeed, but this powerful woman finally came out. Under everyone's gaze, Zi Xueqing's white robe was whiter than snow. Standing in the snow, she looked even more holy and noble, unapproachable. She stepped on the snow and slowly walked 2 steps to the front of the Moonbreeze couple. She squatted down and stuffed a pill into their mouths. On the other side, Chen Mengkai and Shi Jing roared and were about to stand up. Zi Xueqing turned around abruptly, her eyes cold. "Lie down. Don't move." However, Shi Jing and Chen Mengkai were also the elder masters of the 2 big clans. How could they afford to lose face in front of everyone? "You want me to lie down, so I have to lie down with my butt up. What kind of image is this?" Both of them pushed off the ground and jumped up. Blood was flowing from the corners of their mouths. They looked at Zi Xueqing with hatred. "Demoness. You." Before they finished speaking, Zi Xueqing had already appeared in front of them and slapped Shi Jing's face. "You are really deaf. Really deaf. Really deaf." Slap, 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 slap. Every time he scolded her, she would slap him a few times. Shi Jing wanted to resist, but he felt that he couldn't move at all. He wanted to open his mouth and scold her, but he couldn't make a sound. He could only stand there and take the slaps. The most ironic thing was that Shi Jing's longsword was still in his hand. And it was straight forward. The sword was shining brightly. He only needed to stab it forward and it would pierce into the body of this detestable woman, but he couldn't move at all. He could only raise his head, puff out his chest, straighten his back, hold his sword and valiantly take the slap. Shi Jing's eyes were filled with anger and humiliation. He was already like a volcano. At this moment, Shi Jing only wanted to die. To be tortured like this in front of so many people, and most of them were his own grandsons and juniors, he had really lost all his face today. Following the loud slaps, Shi Jing's old face was first slapped to the left, then to the right, then back again, and back again. After going back and forth for dozens of times, Zi Xueqing loosened her grip. She slapped Shi Jing's face that was already swollen like a pig's head, causing him to fall to the ground. He actually went back to the position where he was lying down just now. "I told you to lie down, so lie down." As she said, she turned around and slapped Chen Mengqi's face. He asked, 8th grade supreme martial artist is so awesome. "I told you to lie down, and you still dare to get up. I told you to get up. I told you to get up. Get up. Get up. Get up. Come." Every time she scolded him, she would slap him. Again, dozens of times. Chen Mengqi's face also turned around and turned around. And turned around again. And turned around again, just like a puppet, only the cracking sounds of his neck bones could be heard. These continuous slaps were extremely loud and crisp. Moreover, as Zi Xueqing slapped them, she was also controlling them to not let the blood from their mouths and noses stain her white clothes. She was a person who loved cleanliness, all around. Everyone's faces were filled with grief and indignation. Especially the supreme martial artists of the Shi clan and Chen clan, all of them were breathing heavily. Their eyes were red and they looked like they were about to burst. They only felt that their chests were about to explode from grief and indignation at this moment. But now, The elder master was in the hands of someone else. Not to mention that they did not dare to charge forward, not to mention that they would not be a match for her even if they did. Even if they did, they had to hold back. And the Dharma Supreme had not given the order. Although everyone was gritting their teeth, they could only bear with it. After a while, the slaps were finally over. Zi Xieching gave the last slap, causing Chen Mengkai to fall to the ground and lie down in the same position as before, side by side with Shijing. Only then did she say with satisfaction, "Isn't it good now? Everyone has to be slapped 10 times before they are willing to listen. How despicable." After saying that, she turned and asked the Moonbreeze couple in a gentle voice, "How are you guys?" Yu Lingxue laughed bitterly and said, "Thank you, Lord Zi, for your miraculous medicine. For the time being, we should not die. However, the main thing is that our vitality has been greatly damaged and our foundations are almost destroyed. Looks like we will need quite a long time to recuperate." Zi Xieching nodded. "It's all right. Both of you have life force origin. Although your foundations have been shaken, you will be able to recover in a short time." At this moment, the two people on the ground groaned and tried to get up again stubbornly. Their eyes were already filled with madness. Zi Xieching stretched out her leg without a word and kicked Shijing until he was on top of Chen Mengkai. Then, she lifted her leg gently and stepped on Shijing's back. She said to Yu Lingxue, "Old Buyu's spirit has collapsed." Yu Lingxue nodded. "Yes." Poof. Shijing, who was below, was stomped hard onto the ground. How sturdy was the ground of Mount Xingyun? Instantly, all 4 of his front teeth were knocked out. His face was flattened and stuck to the ground, blood flowing out. On the opposite side, Xiaoce stepped forward. Finally, he could not help but say, "This expert, your cultivation is far superior to ours. If you want to kill us, just do it quickly. Why do you have to humiliate us like this?" "Humiliate you?" Zi Xieching smiled. "First, you used tricks, then ambushes, then besieges. Finally, you even kept a trap waiting for me. Now you are actually blaming me for humiliating you?" Xiaoce's old face turned red. He said, "Although we used tricks, we also fought fair and square. But you are humiliating us." Zi Xieching laughed coldly. She exerted more force on her leg and the two people below groaned again. Then, she looked up at Xiaoce and said indifferently, "Yes, I am humiliating you. So what? Do you have an opinion? Come. Let me see how a hero like you has an opinion." This chapter is the first chapter to make up for the missing chapters. Begging for votes. To be continued. Chapter 11-16. Xiaoce took a step back and said angrily, "What opinion do I have? It's just a pity." His expression was actually a little cowardly at heart. If this woman were to do the same to him, then, he might as well die. Zi Xieching sneered and said, "You are indeed a hero who speaks up for justice." Xiaoce's face turned red. At this moment, the Dharma Supreme's voice sounded. "However, no matter how high one's cultivation is, it doesn't mean that one is omnipotent." Zi Xieching said indifferently, "Oh?" The Dharma Supreme said indifferently, "Activate the array. Now, it officially begins. Slay the Tao." At his command, Zhuge Hutu immediately activated the array. Instantly, the world became miserable and the wind blew. The sky that was torn open by Zi Xieching just now closed up again. This time, the sun and moon really lost their light. Yi Di and the rest retreated in an orderly manner and hid in the darkness. Wu Juecheng floated and occupied the eye of the array. He smiled indifferently and said, "Lady, are you from the Black Blood Forest?" Zi Xieching smiled indifferently and said, "Even your ancestor Wu Chenfeng doesn't dare to call me lady." "Wu Juecheng, you are really bold." Wu Juecheng laughed softly and said, "If it's one-on-one, I may not be your match. But now, it won't be so easy for you to get out of this array." "Why wouldn't I dare?" Zi Xieching sneered. At this moment, there was a tremor in the sky. Bu Liuqing, who was on the ground, slowly stood up. His cultivation was fully recovered. Zi Xieching looked up. She smiled bitterly and said, "Brother Bu, looks like you won't be able to leave for now." This array has even shielded the heavenly secret. Even if I can leave, I won't. Bu Liuqing said indifferently, Old Ning has not recovered from his serious injuries, how can I leave with peace of mind? At the moment when he collapsed the sky, his spiritual senses were sharp and he actually sensed that Ning Tianya was not dead. He was greatly relieved. After today, you can leave with peace of mind. I advise you, if you can go up, it's better to go up as soon as possible. Zi Sheqing said indifferently, there are many people who will have to go up in the future. You go up first. It's a good opportunity to explore the path. Bu Liuqing started to ponder. At this moment, the demonic aura in the array became more and more intense. A heavy pressure seemed to communicate with the heavens and earth. It pressed down ferociously. Zi Sheqing did not seem to notice and allowed the other party to activate the power of the formation to the maximum. She said to Bu Liuqing, when the battle starts later, you only need to take care of the Moonbreeze couple. Leave the rest to me. Be careful. Bu Liuqing said solemnly, this formation is not simple. Zi Sheqing said indifferently, if I wasn't confident, why would I let them set up the formation? Ha. Bu Liuqing laughed and said, however, you've already come out. On the other hand, the Book Friends upload updates side was weak. If there's any danger, I'm afraid we won't be able to save them in time. Zi Sheqing was silent for a while and said, we can't possibly protect them all. Even if he could do it, he couldn't. They had to walk their own path in the end. That's why I suggest that you leave after this incident. This time, I estimate that there will definitely be casualties, but it will definitely not be a complete wipeout. The occasional casualty was also a lesson for them. If there are no casualties, that would be even better. Bu Liuqing also sighed. He remained silent for a while. Then, he finally said, all right. Then, he said, we're leaving. Old Ning is seriously injured. Given Moonbreeze couple's current situation, they need to recuperate for at least a year. Then, after a year, they won't have any strong backing. Zi Sheqing said, that's why they can grow. Bu Liuqing frowned. But the other party, after this battle, they won't have any backing. Zi Sheqing's eyes were full of murderous intent. She exerted force with her feet. With a bang, she kicked Shi Jing and Chen Mengqi's bodies out. With a loud crash, they landed on the mountain rocks. Both of them were smashed into pieces. You have me, I have you. They didn't even have time to cry out before they died an unnatural death just like that. It was also at this moment that the wind suddenly blew wildly, as if thousands of ghosts were crying together. A voice said, Great Nebula Divide of Heavenly Secrets Great Array. Slaying of the Tao. The next moment, Wu Jueqing let out a long howl and shouted, Kill! Spots of starlight suddenly lit up in the land of shadows. Little by little, they moved quickly, as if following some kind of strange rhythm and trajectory, they were moving. Not a single human figure could be seen, but one could feel that there were definitely many human figures. A strong current, as strong as a raging wave, came crashing toward them just like that. Bu Liuqing turned pale with fright when the strong wind reached him. The strength of this strong wind was at least 5 times stronger than his and Ning Tianya's combined strength. Zi Sheqing raised her hand and sent a wisp of divine consciousness into Bu Liuqing's body. She said, protect them. No matter what happens, don't move. Then, she turned and shot toward the strong current. Her slender body was like a white arrow, shooting straight toward the raging waves. Wherever she went, she actually used her own body to bore a hole through this strong current. She flew past swiftly and fiercely. Bu Liuqing, who was watching from behind, was dumbfounded. What the heck? She could do that too. It was only now that Zi Sheqing really revealed her true strength. Her true strength was far higher than what the Dharma Supreme and Wu Jueqing had guessed. It was also higher than what Chu Yang had guessed. Especially after receiving so much primordial violet vapor from Chu Yang, Zi Sheqing, who had attained the Tao state, was at least twice as strong as herself before receiving the primordial violet vapor. Before attaining the Tao state, Zi Sheqing had already agreed to this decisive battle. What would happen after attaining the Tao state? As expected, It was the combined power of the 50 supreme martial artists of the Ling clan who had struck out from the shadow starlight. They had used the function of the Great Nebula Divide of Heavenly Secrets Array to combine the power of 50 supreme martial artists into one. The power of the entire attack was more than 100 times stronger than that of a single person. Moreover, with the addition of the Great Nebula Divide of Heavenly Secrets Array, everyone was full of confidence. Although this attack was only a probing attack, Zhi Xiaoqing would definitely be in a difficult situation. She might even be injured on the spot. But what no one expected was that, along with a strange sound, Zhi Xiaoqing's figure suddenly appeared in front of everyone. She raised her fair palm and struck toward them. And the place where she was standing was actually the place where the force of the attack came from. Ling Fengyun's expression changed drastically. He shouted, "Retreat! Disperse!" Since she was standing here, it proved that the concentrated force of the attack was useless against her. Under such circumstances, they had to come up with another plan. However, although this shout was timely, it was still too late. Since Zhi Xiaoqing had attacked, she came with killing intent. How could she let anyone escape? With one strike, the fair palm turned into thousands of copies, as if a pure white lotus had turned into a mountain. Suddenly, it pressed down. The supreme martial artists of the Ling clan had just struck out and were waiting to see the results. Who knew that disaster would befall them? The slap landed on the ground like a mosquito. More than 30 supreme martial artists were turned into minced meat under this slap. Ling Fengyun's scalp went numb. He brought his men and rolled backward. Under the protection of the array, they turned into starlight and disappeared. Zhi Xiaoqing snorted and flew up. She chased after them and struck out 2 consecutive palms, but actually hit nothing. The 2 palms landed on the rocks of Mount Xingyun. Such a sturdy Mount Xingyun was actually left with 2 deep and small palm print. The people in the dark sucked in a breath of cold air. Even someone like Bu Liuqing couldn't move a rock. Zhi Xiaoqing actually made a half-foot deep hole? The Dharma Supreme shouted, "Split the heavens." Zhuge Hutu let out a long howl. Howls echoed from 8 directions. Starlight flashed. 30 people had already arrived behind the starlight of the Ling clan to support and replenish their strength. The Shi clan, Chen clan, and Lan clan no longer had a leader. The Dharma Supreme had already sent a high-level supreme martial artist over to temporarily take charge of one side. Wu Jueqing stood beside the supreme martial artist. Starlight shone on him. Suddenly, he let out a long howl. In an instant, the wind and clouds stirred. "First star position," Zhuge Hutu shouted. From the direction of the Yi clan, a ray of white light rushed up, breaking a thin hole in the pitch-black night sky created by the array. Immediately, the starlight of the entire Great Nebula Array shook rapidly and scattered in all directions. Finally, it merged into a single point and condensed on the thin hole. The next moment, a thin bolt of lightning rushed down like a thunderbolt. From thin to thick, when it landed, it was actually as thick as a water bucket. It came crashing down on Zhi Xiaoqing. Zhi Xiaoqing frowned and dodged. In a flash, she was 300 feet away. However, that bolt of lightning seemed to have grown eyes. It turned a corner and chased after her. Like a maggot in one's bones, it chased after her relentlessly. Zhi Xiaoqing was shocked. This thing was really strange. She purposely ran around, leading this bolt of lightning back and forth to see if it could be used up. However, after she ran around 100 times, this bolt of lightning still chased after her relentlessly. It did not weaken at all. Zhi Xiaoqing was shocked. She stood still and used her palm to meet it head-on. With a loud boom, Zhi Xiaoqing leaned back violently. However, this bolt of lightning turned back into starlight and disappeared. Zhi Xiaoqing let out a long sigh. Her expression finally turned serious. She remembered Chu Yang's words, "Perhaps human strength cannot kill you. However, in this world, the power that can kill you is not just human strength alone." Now, Zhi Xiaoqing began to agree with this statement. At least, the strange power of thunder and lightning in this attack was 10 times more powerful than the Ling clan's attack just now. Moreover, the power was concentrated and not scattered. It could even chase after the target and there was no way to avoid it. If he could continue to attack endlessly like this, he was afraid that he might really die here. However, Zhi Sheqing was even more certain that they could not use it endlessly, because if they said that such an attack did not consume energy, she would definitely not believe it. In the shadows, a few groans could be heard. At the Yi clan's location, Yi Di's face turned pale. Someone floated behind him like a ghost. It was the Dharma Supreme. He asked directly, "How was the effect?" "3 of our members were killed. It hurt our reputation." Yi Di took in a long breath. The other party did not have it easy either. "I heard her groan just now, and only 3 people died on your side. 3 deaths in exchange for a groan from the other party." The Dharma Supreme was actually relieved. He said, "How many more times can the Yi clan sustain such an attack?" I continue to write. My head hurts a little. The next update should be at least 3 o'clock. If you can't wait, go to sleep and watch it tomorrow. Gee, today is Monday, please recommend me, comment me. Gee, there's still the monthly ticket. Chapter 11:17. Yi Di calculated silently and said, "Barely. There's still a few more times." "Good." The Dharma Supreme said, "Those who are injured should hurry up and recover. If you have medicine, hurry up and use it. Now, the other clans will take over first. After a round of rotation, it will be the Yi clan's turn to attack." Yi Di nodded heavily. Next, the starry lightning kept appearing in the sky. Zhi Sheqing also kept dealing with them one by one. Other than that, there was no other way. Because this big array actually blocked out human aura and divine secrets. Nothing could be detected. She could only fight passively. But Zhi Sheqing changed her form. From the initial wandering, she stood quietly at a high place, allowing the lightning to strike her down. Then, she retaliated with a palm. As the lightning became more frequent, Zhi Sheqing finally showed signs of fatigue. She seemed to be seriously injured. When she took on the lightning, her body also retreated more and more. Her body shook more and more violently. It seemed that her strength was not enough. Yi Di, the Dharma Supreme and the rest were secretly happy. No matter how strong and powerful you are, how many times can you take? Just the continuous depletion of energy can exhaust you to death. But what they did not know was that Zhi Sheqing was also very happy. The intensity of such attacks was not small. Taking on each of them head-on was indeed very exhausting. But Zhi Sheqing's cultivation was endless. Her fatigue now was just an act after she took on more than 30 lightning strikes. If it was really based on cultivation, Zhi Sheqing felt that she could at least take on more than 100 of such heavy attacks. Of course, if the heavy pill that Chu Yang gave her was included, Zhi Sheqing could at least take on 1,500 strikes. More than that, however, the people from the big clans and law enforcement officers couldn't use it 1,500 times. 100 times was already the limit. Every strike would reflect the impact. At least 2 or 3 people would die each time. Even the big clans could not bear such losses. But the situation now was that as long as the big array was not removed, no one could get out of this array. So far, the starry lightning had attacked 34 times. And there should have been 771 supreme martial artists on the side of the big clans and law enforcement officers. A total of 100 of them were killed. Once Zhi Sheqing came, another 32 were killed. A total of 540 people participated in the attack on Zhi Sheqing. But after these 33 strikes of starry lightning, although the enemy looked more and more pathetic. However, on his side. They lost another 117 men. Currently, there were 432 survivors. I didn't count wrong, right? Right now, both sides were secretly enjoying themselves, but it was unknown who was truly enjoying themselves. However, the one who was most pleased was probably the Dharma Supreme. No matter which clan or which side launched the attack, the Dharma Supreme would definitely go over and check on them. How much did they lose? How many had died? As he asked the question, he quietly absorbed the life origin power of the deceased autarch. He had even earned the gratitude of the great families. After dozens of consecutive attacks, Zhi Sheqing was still on the verge of collapse. However, the number of experts from the big clans and law enforcement officers had been reduced to 300. Bu Liuqing and the other two, who were originally on tenterhooks, finally felt relieved. Even Yi Di and the others realized that something was wrong. Fuck. Who was the one exhausting who? Why does this situation seem a little strange? Lord Dharma Supreme. Something's not right. Yi Di frowned. The Great Array gathers our cultivation to 1 point, which is equivalent to increasing it by 3 times or more. Then, with the help of the nebula, it increases it by several times, right? In this case, even if there were 10 Ning Tianyas and Bu Liuqing joining forces, the current attack would still be able to kill them. By right, it should be able to kill them in 1 strike. Now, this woman has been wobbling like this since an hour ago, and she is still wobbling like this now. Yi Di hissed and sucked in a breath of cold air. She is exhausting us. The Dharma Supreme frowned and said, "Is it that serious?" Yi Di sighed heavily. "I'm afraid so. In this Great Array, she can't find us at all, nor can she attack us. She can only use this method to exhaust our strength. Lord Dharma Supreme, as there are fewer and fewer people, the number of people who are killed by the rebound of each starry lightning attack is also increasing. If this goes on, it's not a solution." The Dharma Supreme frowned and pondered for a while. Then, he said, "If that's the case, I'll tell Zhuge to attack from all directions at the same time, destroy the opponent in 1 strike and get it done once and for all." Yi Di said gratefully, "Thank you for your understanding, Lord Dharma Supreme." Then, the Dharma Supreme turned and left. The Dharma Supreme organized and tried his best to instigate this massacre of Tao with only one motive: to collect the life force origin. To him, Chu Yang was not the master of Tribulation's sword anyway. No matter how powerful he was or how powerful his forces were, he was just a force in the heavens. Even if he developed to become as powerful as the big clans, what could he do? Could he still threaten his position as the Dharma Supreme? But, if he didn't instigate such a great battle, where was he going to collect so much life force origin? Something like the Dharma Supreme nourishing the heavens only happened once in 1,000 years. Did he have to go around hunting supreme martial artists? Coincidentally, Zi Xueqing's strong appearance gave the big clans a sense of crisis. Thus, the Dharma Supreme meticulously planned this massacre of Tao. This battle would not only provide him with abundant life force origin of the supreme martial artists, if he succeeded, he would also be able to obtain the life force origin of a great Tao expert like Zi Xueqing. This was something that he had always dreamed of. Zi Xueqing was exhausting the strength here. After more than 20 times, the Dharma Supreme could tell. But at that time, he was still busy collecting and felt that his strength was enough, so he wasn't anxious. But now, he felt that it was about time. In the Dharma Supreme's mind, he had now collected the life force origin of more than 400 supreme martial artists. Although it was much inferior compared to the Dharma Supreme nourishing the heavens, it could be said that it was a great harvest now. He might as well get rid of Zi Xueqing as soon as possible so that he could rest easy. Otherwise, because this was not his mother's body, his life force origin was always suppressed in his body and could not be used. This was always a big problem. Under the Dharma Supreme's planning, the big clans quickly adjusted. Zi Xueqing was wondering why there was suddenly no movement. The next moment, there was a sudden swoosh. Stars flashed all over the sky. Then, a ray of starlight and lightning attacked at the same time. The starlight lightning first circled around in the sky, then merged into one at the point of intersection. It was a few jong thick, with a blazing white light and a bright, multicolored luster. There was a faint purple aura as it crazily descended. Zi Xueqing let out a long howl and suddenly, her white clothes puffed up. With a bang, her long hair broke free from the restraint of her hairband. Every strand of her hair stood straight in the air and her whole body emitted a faint purple aura. Her 2 hands shook and her sleeves suddenly exploded into ashes. Her slender body floated up slowly and her face was also covered by a layer of purple aura. As for her 2 hands, their original color could no longer be seen clearly. Her entire body was covered by the purple aura. This attack was extraordinary. Zi Xueqing also finally took out her trump card. Her two hands intertwined and then flew up fiercely towards the ray of lightning that was a few feet thick. Before it got close, her two hands had already struck out continuously. Rays of purple aura were like rays of beautiful lightning in the night sky, facing the ray of starlight and lightning. It flew over continuously. In the shadows, Bu Liuqing and the other two opened their mouths wide. Life and death, victory and defeat, all depended on this attack. Everyone was well aware of this. After this attack, if Zi Sheqing died, the massacre of the Dao would be a success. After this attack, if Zi Sheqing did not die but was seriously injured, it would only be a half success. If she was only lightly injured, then it would announce the decline of the big clans and law enforcement officers. Because Zi Sheqing would definitely not let them off. With Zi Sheqing's current abilities, once she left the great nebula divide of Heavenly Secrets Array, even if the Dharma Supreme and Wu Jueqing joined forces, they would definitely not be her match. This was undeniable. The gazes of hundreds of people were all nervously watching the collision of the white and purple lights. Their eyes did not blink, and each and every one of them was anxiously beating. Under everyone's gaze, Zi Sheqing's first ray of purple palm energy finally collided with the lightning. There was a loud bang. The whole Mount Xingyun also started to tremble. Then, the second, third and fourth palm energy, continuous booms. Some of the third grade and below supreme martial artists were already killed by such loud booms before the recoil could return. All the supreme martial artists below the third grade were all bleeding from all orifices. Zi Sheqing struck out 10 times in a frenzy. The 100th palm energy directly met the ray of starlight and lightning with both hands. Her long hair fluttered like waves and she roared, "All of you, die." She pushed outwards fiercely. With a boom, the ray of starlight and lightning was actually smashed into pieces by her hands, turning into rays of light that shot out in all directions. The sky above, which was completely sealed by the array, actually let out the sound of glass breaking. Then, the darkness in the sky suddenly disappeared. The snow was still fluttering. Blood-curdling screams resounded in the sky as the Supreme Being experts in various places revealed themselves one after another. The extremely powerful rebounding force sent the Supreme Beings of the great clans, who were controlling the array, flying into the air. Most of the weaker ones were already smashed into minced meat in the air. The horror of the tremors this time was simply unparalleled. 350 supreme martial artist experts were actually reduced by 352 in an instant. It was as if the sky was raining blood in the midst of the heavy snow. Even Wu Jueqing, who was at the highest point, let out a loud scream. Blood spurted out of his mouth and he fell straight down. Only Yi Di, Xiao Se, Ling Fengyun, Zhuge Hutu, Qing Chou, the Dharma Supreme, Wu Jueqing and an 8th grade supreme martial artist were left. Among these people, other than the Dharma Supreme who did not participate in the attack of the array at all and did not suffer any recoil and was still intact, Wu Jueqing, including him, had blood dripping from the corners of his mouth. Zhuge Hutu, whose cultivation was slightly weaker, barely managed to preserve his life. However, he was already lying on the ground, unable to move. Opposite him, Zi Sheqing's delicate body shook violently. She retreated continuously, leaving a deep footprint on the ground with every step she took. She took several steps back before she finally stopped. She cried out 3 times and spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood. Her face was as white as paper. However, she actually used the most barbaric method to directly break through the great nebula divide of Heavenly Secrets Array by herself. In a situation where she did not even meet with them, she slaughtered almost all the enemies in one go. This kind of cultivation was simply earth-shattering. 5th update on 21st, Chapter 3 to make up for what I owe. Gee, I really can't take it anymore. I'm going to sleep. I'll continue to work hard when I wake up. Please support me with your monthly votes. Thank you. Gee, also, I'd like to recommend an exceptionally good book. Yu Guan's historical novel Drunken Nation. A book written by Sister Yu is definitely of good quality. I dare to pat my chest and guarantee that it will definitely be good. If you don't like it, come back and chop me with a knife. Everyone, please go and bookmark it. There's a link on our page, you can go there directly. You have to go. Oh, to To be continued. Chapter 11:18. The 8 of them looked at Zi Xiecheng as if they had seen a ghost. That kind of inexplicable horror, that kind of extreme shock, was already beyond word. With the power of one person, against hundreds of supreme martial artists, combined with the power of the array and multiplied by several times, she actually defeated all of them in one move. Killed. Such a fact made everyone feel like they were dreaming. Nightmare. Even the Dharma Supreme and Wu Jueqing looked at Zi Xiecheng, trembling all over. The horror in the depths of their eyes was hard to hide. Although Zi Xiecheng's face was pale, her gaze was sharp as she looked at the people opposite her. She gently reached out her hand and wiped away the blood at the corner of her mouth. She smiled lightly. This is your battle to slay the Tao. It is indeed powerful. She was not asking a question. She also knew that no one would answer. She just continued to speak. As early as 20 days ago, after that auction, all of you had already discussed slaying the Tao in the underground secret chamber of the Zhuge clan. I thought it was some earth-shattering big plan, but I didn't expect it to be like this. Zi Xiecheng said lightly. Yi Di raised his head abruptly. You already knew? Zi Xiecheng nodded lightly. From that day onwards, I have been looking forward to this battle coming soon. Killing them one by one, how can it be compared to gathering them together and destroying them all at once? She sneered. Moreover, you were willing to gather the experts of the clan to send them to their deaths. I am more than happy to fulfill your wish. You want to slay the Tao, but how do you know that I want to do the same? Slay a Tao. Everyone's face was ashen. Their flawless plan was actually all in the hands of the other party. Bu Liuqing was suddenly enlightened. No wonder Zi Xiecheng was not anxious about this matter and did not take it to heart at all. It turned out that she already had a plan and had been waiting for the other party's trap. Today's battle has finally come. Zi Xiecheng said coldly. What else do you have to say? Everyone's face was ashen. Only 8 out of the 771 supreme martial artists were left. What else could they say? Zi Xiecheng turned around and faced Wu Jueqing. She said somewhat regretfully, your ancestor and I were originally friends. I did not come here today to kill you either, but you were in charge of the Eye of the Formation and didn't hesitate to consume the power of your soul to guide the starlight lightning to kill me. This time, I can't forgive you. Wu Jueqing raised his head abruptly, a look of disbelief in his eyes. What? The power of his natal source spirit? What source spirit's power? You don't know? Zi Xiecheng could not help but feel a little surprised. You're so enthusiastic about this matter. You didn't hesitate to use your own body to block the Eye of the Formation, expend your primordial spirit, draw heavenly powers, enter the stars, and transform into lightning to kill me. You actually didn't know? Wu Jueqing's face darkened and he lowered his head deeply. No one knew what he was thinking about. Then, he slowly raised his head and focused his gaze on the Dharma Supreme's face. Then, he shifted his gaze from the Dharma Supreme's face to Zhuge Hutu's face. His voice was so calm that it was somewhat frightening. This, the power of the origin soul, what is going on? The Dharma Supreme's expression was grave as he turned to look at Zhuge Hutu. Zhuge, what is going on? Why was it related to his natal source spirit? What the hell are you doing? Zhuge Hutu lay on the ground, looking at the Dharma Supreme, somewhat at a loss of what to do. For a moment, he actually could not speak. After a long while, a hint of understanding suddenly flashed in his eyes. He pointed at the Dharma Supreme and said, You. The Dharma Supreme leaped up and floated in front of Zhuge Hutu. He raised his hand and slapped him across the face. Speak. What exactly is going on? Zhuge Hutu's throat gurgled but he could not say a single word. The Dharma Supreme let out a long sigh, extremely sorrowful. Brother Wu, I have let you down. You can interrogate this person. As he spoke, he took 3 steps back, somewhat disheartened, exposing Zhuge Hutu to Wu Jueqing. Wu Jueqing's face was filled with murderous intent as he strode over. Zhuge Hutu, very good. You even dared to plot against me, and actually plotted against my natal source spirit. Suddenly, Zi Xiecheng shouted, Be careful. Behind Wu Jueqing, The Dharma Supreme suddenly made his move. His two hands carried a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas as he firmly and violently slapped Wu Jueqing's back. A huge force suddenly erupted. This attack had already condensed all the strength of the Dharma Supreme in his lifetime. Wu Jueqing was completely unprepared. After being severely injured, he was instantly sent flying in anger and tumbled towards Zi Xueqing. Cracking sounds could be heard from his body. Countless bones had already been broken and he was spitting out mouthfuls of fresh blood. As for the Dharma Supreme behind him, after that palm strike, he quickly used his movement techniques and used all his strength to travel thousands of miles in an inch. With a swoosh, he was already a few thousand feet away. Zi Xueqing caught Wu Jueqing and threw him onto the ground. When she leaped up and chased after him, the Dharma Supreme had already become a small black dot in the distance. Zi Xueqing snorted angrily. She stretched out her hand and tore the space apart. She took a step forward and reached the position of the Dharma Supreme's black dot. However, in just a short while, the Dharma Supreme had already traveled another 1,000 feet away. Zi Xueqing let out a soft roar and sent out a palm strike. The Dharma Supreme, who was sprinting, was already nearing the south gate of Tianji City. Suddenly, he felt the pressure behind him increase. He knew that Zi Xueqing was chasing after him. If she caught up to him, he would definitely die today even if he had 100 lives. In a state of panic, he suddenly used all his might to activate the life force origin energy in his body. Disregarding his own life and death, he used both forces at the same time and increased his speed abruptly. With a boom, Zi Xueqing's palm strike finally arrived just as the Dharma Supreme reached the south gate of Tianji City. With a distance of 1,000 feet between them, it hit the Dharma Supreme hard. The Dharma Supreme let out a loud cry. With a loud bang, he dashed forward and entered the city gate. With a loud boom, the entire southern gate of Tianji City collapsed. A strong gust of wind rushed all the way into Tianji City. Within the range of 300 feet, all the houses and buildings of humans and beasts were reduced to dust. The Dharma Supreme's figure flashed in the dust. One could vaguely see that his left arm and shoulder were gone. There was a big hole in his back. However, in a flash, he disappeared without a trace. Zi Xueqing snorted and followed closely into the south gate of Tianji City. There was a cloud of dust and smoke. Purple qi was rising in front of them. Zi Xueqing went forward to take a look and saw a pool of blood on the ground. Purple qi was gathering and dispersing in the pool of blood. Life origin energy? Why is there so much life origin energy in his blood? Zi Xueqing was a little surprised, but she did not care. She struck out with her palm and the ball of blood flew away and disappeared without a trace. Then, when he tried to lock onto it with his divine soul, he found that it was gone. Something like a divine soul lock, if it was shifted or thrown off, it would not disappear. There was only one possibility for such a thing to happen, and that was that this person was already dead. Zi Xueqing searched one round but did not find the Dharma Supreme's body. She used her divine perception to scan the area one last time before she flew up and hurried back. There were still many enemies to be dealt with over there. Furthermore, the heavy snow in the sky was accompanied by the faint sound of thunder. This was the warning of the heavens and earth after he had revealed his true strength. Furthermore, Bu Liuqing was about to arrive. After she left, there was a commotion at the south gate of Sky City. Everyone was guessing what kind of natural disaster had happened. In a cloud of dust, an old man in black staggered out with a gloomy face. He was still disabled. Below his left shoulder, there was nothing left. His chest and back seemed to have been pierced through. There was a faint bloody hole that was actually transparent from the front to the back. It was a miracle that this person was still alive despite being severely injured to such an extent. The old man staggered to the city gate. He took a look and a deep hatred suddenly appeared in his eyes. The life origin energy that he had collected for 10,000 years was struck down along with his own life origin energy. Now, it had turned into ashes. If he wanted to collect it again, where was he going to find another 10,000 years? Where was he going to find so many supreme martial artists? At this moment, he felt cold all over. If not for the fact that he still had the power of the soul from when he was a tribulation in his body, this attack would have caused his soul to leave the world. But even so, his vitality was already greatly damaged. In the current situation, it was already very good to be able to keep his life. Speaking of recovering his cultivation, it was even more of an extravagant hope. The Dharma Supreme stayed in a daze for a while with a malicious look in his eyes. Someone asked him with concern, but he ignored them. He turned a corner and disappeared. Zi Xiecheng returned to Mount Xingyun in a flash, only to see that it was still a mess. Wu Juecheng was still lying on the ground, not getting up. His white robes were already stained with blood. His face was full of hatred. He coughed again and again, and every cough was accompanied by a mouthful of blood. Yi and the others were all sitting on the ground, their faces ashen. It should be those people, but it was still those people. No one had left. Everyone knew that even if the monk ran away, the temple couldn't. They all had big families and businesses. The other party could easily dig out their roots. They might as well just wait here and end this matter. It was just death. Zi Xiecheng floated down and asked, "How is it?" Bu Liuqing smiled bitterly. "I'm afraid Wu Juecheng is crippled." Zi Xiecheng frowned and said, "Even death can't wipe out his crimes. So what if he is crippled?" She turned to look at Yi and the others and said indifferently, "What do you all say?" Yi was disheartened and said, "Our skills are not as good as his." "What else can we say? Since ancient times, the winner takes all. We have nothing to say. Lord, please give us a way out and don't implicate our families." Zi Xiecheng said indifferently, "If we lose this time, what will happen to our families here? Will you all let them go?" She laughed coldly and said, "Now, the battle in Tianji City has already started. Your people against our people. There is a bloody battle over there, and here, you all are begging for mercy." Yi sighed and said, "Since this is the case, please do it, Lord." Now that he was seriously injured and couldn't move, even if he rushed over, it would be too late to stop them. What else could he say? Zi Xiecheng's palm flew out and swept up that 8th grade supreme martial artist who was regulating his breathing, and smashed him into a pulp. She said coldly, "Do you think that I don't dare to kill all your big families? Or do you think that I will be punished by heaven?" Today, the comments section made him very unhappy, and he was very upset. He was sleeping and was woken up by the deputy head of the forum. He quickly deleted all the posts and muted them. Chapter 11:19. Sir, please spare Zhuge Hutu's life. On the other side, Wu Juecheng struggled and shouted, "If I don't understand this matter, I won't be able to die in peace." Wu Juecheng was extremely miserable. Lured out by the Dharma Supreme, he fought with Ning Tianya and was then lured here to preside over the array. He was supposed to be the core of some array, but in the end, his original soul was extracted here. This made Wu Juecheng almost want to commit suicide. Was he really that stupid? First, he was used by that sword master of tribulations until he died, and he did it willingly. Then, he was used by the Dharma Supreme until he died, and he did it willingly. Wu Juecheng was extremely furious. The Dharma Supreme's sneak attack was extremely solid. He gathered all his cultivation in his palms and struck hard, fearing that Wu Juecheng would take revenge on him if he didn't die. Wu Juecheng's dantian was destroyed, his meridians were torn, his spine was shattered, more than 10 of his ribs were broken, and even his hip bone was shattered. If it had been anyone else, even Ning Tianya, they would have died immediately under such circumstances. But Wu Juecheng actually didn't die, just couldn't get up from the ground. If he could get up, Wu Juecheng would have pounced on him long ago. The peerless Wu Juecheng, in this slaying of the Dao battle, without using his morning wind divine technique, without using his flowing cloud sword technique, and without even having the time to use his trump card, the sword intent, he was already crippled. And it was an internal conflict. This matter really made one sigh. Heavens will really make a fool out of people, to think that it was like this. You want to ask? Zi Xiecheng kicked Zhuge Hutu over. For the sake of your ancestors, hurry up if you want to ask. Wu Juecheng tried hard to raise his head, enduring the pain of being cut into pieces. He asked, "Zhuge Hutu, You tell me about this array. Zhuge Hutu was stubborn. He said, you were deceived by the Dharma Supreme, but wasn't I also deceived by him? And I even became a scapegoat. Wu Jueqing looked straight at him. The array. Zhuge Hutu said, the great nebula sky-splitting array of heavenly secrets has always required an 8th grade supreme martial artist's natal soul to operate. Once the array is completed and ends, the 8th grade supreme martial artist's natal soul will completely dissipate. He himself would also die. This is the reason why we, the Zhuge clan, rarely use this formation even though we have it. After all, no one would be willing to waste an 8th grade supreme martial artist. Zhuge Hutu said indifferently, as for this time, it was the Dharma Supreme who said that Lord Wu is going to sacrifice himself for 2 Dao. Ha ha. Naturally, we won't say anything. Wu Jueqing's eyes widened. Sacrifice, for the slaying of the Dao? Suddenly, he spat out a mouthful of blood and cried out, Dharma Supreme. Fuck your mother. His eyelids rolled back, and he fainted. Wu Jueqing had been brought up in a strict family ever since he was young, so he rarely used vulgarities. But this time, he was so angry that he didn't even bother to choose his words carefully. Kill yourselves. Zi Xieching looked at Yi Di and the rest and said slowly. The faces of Yi Di and the rest were ashen. This Lord Zi was indeed unwilling to let them off. Wait. Bu Liuqing said, Lord Zi, please wait. I think it's better to keep these people alive. In today's battle, they were all wiped out. Without anyone to send a message back to retrieve them, the remaining members of the clan will inevitably stir up trouble. Wu Jueqing said indifferently, what trouble can there be? Just kill them all over there. The thunder in the sky was getting closer and closer. Zi Xieching looked up and said, Bu Liuqing and I are leaving now. There's no time to waste with them. Feng Yuro, Yu Lingxue, the 2 of you bring Wu Jueqing back. Let Chu Yang treat Wu Jueqing. After all, he is the descendant of my old friend. It's best that he doesn't die if possible. Take care of yourselves. As she spoke, she raised her hand and slapped Zhuge Hutu's head. Then, she kicked repeatedly. Yi Di, Xiao Se, Qing Chou and Ling Fengyun were kicked into smithereens. Bu Liuqing and Feng and you didn't have time to say anything. They saw a purple cloud coming from the horizon at high speed. In the heavy snow, it could actually be seen clearly from thousands of miles away. Zi Xieching let out a long howl. Without waiting for the purple cloud to arrive, she shouted, Take care. Farewell. Suddenly, she leaped up. The graceful figure in white reached a height of 1,000 feet in the air. She recited, If we meet again in the clouds, I invite you to sweep away the fallen flowers in Jiangnan. She opened her hands and shouted, Open. With a rip, the sky was torn open. Zi Xieching entered in a flash. They could vaguely hear continuous tearing sounds. Then, they heard a delicate cry from the clouds. I'm going. And she disappeared without a trace. The Feng and Yu trio and Wu Jueqing were all shocked and stunned. At this moment, Wu Jueqing only wanted to smash a few bricks on his own head. Damn it, how crazy must he be to participate in the slaying of Dao battle of this great Dao expert? How was this an ordinary great Dao expert? She was clearly a great Dao expert who had reached the realm of tearing apart the void and traveling freely. He was really gutsy. The purple cloud in the sky had already reached the top of their heads with the faint sound of thunder. Bu Liuqing seemed to have sensed something. He smiled slightly and took out a ring. This is something I prepared for my disciple, Qingwu. Second brother, please pass it to her when you go back. Yu Lingxue received the ring in a daze. He said, Big brother, you, take care. Bu Liuqing's nostalgic gaze swept across the land. He shook his head and chuckled. I don't want to go, but I want to go. I really don't want to go, but I have no choice. Ha ha. I'll be up there, scouting the path for you guys first. When you guys come, you can take care of each other. When you see old Ning, tell him that I've been fighting for the title of #1 in the world for 14,000 years. Actually, I've long known that I'm not as good as him. However, I've won this time. Ha ha. I'll be up there waiting for him to come and settle the score with me. Before Bu Liuqing finished, a purple light had already descended from the clouds. A muffled voice shouted from the purple cloud, "Who shattered the void? Who opened the great Tao?" Bu Liuqing raised his head and shouted, "It's me." That voice said coldly, "It's you. Since you've opened the door to the great Tao, why aren't you following me?" A purple light descended from the clouds. With a swoosh, it landed in front of Bu Liuqing and actually turned into a purple cloud ladder. It continued to climb upwards, its height and distance unknown. Bu Liuqing cupped his hands and floated up the cloud ladder. Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro shouted at the same time, "Big brother, take care." Before he could finish his sentence, the purple staircase disappeared with a swoosh. Bu Liuqing disappeared along with it. Immediately after, that purple cloud even circled in the air for a while, as if it was searching for something. It refused to leave for a long time. Moon Breeze and the rest all knew that it was looking for Zi Xiecheng. However, Zi Xiecheng had already left. Even if it was very resourceful, where could it go to find her? After searching for a long time without any results, that purple cloud finally left. Bu Liuqing stayed on the purple cloud, but felt that he was already isolated from the world. He wanted to look down, but he couldn't see anything. All he could see was purple. He couldn't help but let out a long sigh and closed his eyes. He didn't know what kind of world was beyond that heaven. Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro cupped their hands and stood solemnly, watching Bu Liuqing leave. Both of them suddenly sighed. "Brother Bu going alone, I really don't know whether it's a blessing or a curse." Feng Yuro's eyes were a little red. "For so many years, I didn't have such a sincere brother to take care of me. Now, I just had one, and he's gone again." Yu Lingxue said emotionally, "That's right. I've always thought that Brother Bu was cold and heartless, but once I got to know him, I realized that Brother Bu is such a loyal and righteous man. Let's go back." Feng Yuro stood for a while and said softly. Both of them were seriously injured, but Zi Xiecheng gave them the incomplete version of the heavy elixir the moment she arrived. The heavy elixir circulated in their dantian and merged with the primordial purple vapor in their bodies. Now, they could barely move. Of course, if they wanted to go into battle now, it would take a long time. The loss of life foundation and life force of a peak-level supreme martial artist was not something that could be compensated with an incomplete version of the heavy elixir. The two of them came to Wu Jueqing's side. Wu Jueqing's eyes were tightly shut, tears rolling down his cheeks. "Lord Wu, if you can still hold on, I'll carry you back." Yu Lingxue said apologetically, "This place is remote, we can only find a carriage after we go down the mountain. Please bear with it for a while." Wu Jueqing's spine and hip bones were shattered, he couldn't move at all. If Yu Lingxue carried him back, just this journey alone would be enough for Wu Jueqing to die 100 times. Wu Jueqing gritted his teeth and said, "Then I'll have to trouble you and your wife. Please understand, I can't die now. If I don't take revenge on the Dharma Supreme, I won't be able to die in peace." Yu Lingxue nodded understandingly. They could totally empathize with Wu Jueqing's grievance. Because, in these 10,000 years, the two of them had been deceived like this. Yu Lingxue regulated her breathing for a while and felt that she had regained some strength. Then, she peeled off a few pieces of clothing from the corpse on the ground and made a soft bag out of it. She tried her best not to hurt Wu Jueqing's back before carefully carrying him up. Their thoughts were very simple. Since Wu Jueqing had a huge feud with the Dharma Supreme now, then they would be on the same side in the future. Having such a helper was also not bad. Although the two of them were gentle, Wu Jueqing's injuries were really so severe that they couldn't be any worse. His bones had already shattered to the point where they were about to turn into dust. The moment they moved, he still let out a muffled groan and fainted, then woke up and fainted again. Just by moving to the soft bag, he had already fainted 7 to 8 times. Once he woke up, he started to curse the Dharma Supreme with gritted teeth. Feng Yuro's face flushed red at his filthy words. However, he knew that he was relying on this deep hatred to sustain his life. If he stopped cursing, he would probably die right after that. The two of them carefully lifted the bag and slowly walked down the mountain. 3 peak-level experts and above hurried on their way. Now, their speed was even slower than that of an ordinary person. At this moment, The battle in Tianji City had already turned the sky upside down. Originally, I was very depressed, but when I opened the group chat, I choked on my water. There were 8 groups in Pride, and each group was filled with Yuanfang and the Lord. After looking at the chat history, I laughed so hard that my stomach hurt. Below, I'll post a few words from the 3 groups. Don't be impatient, it's too funny, haha. Eternal Sword Saint, Yuanfang, what do you think about the monthly votes? Windy Yin Su Ya, Lord, I think the monthly votes are in short supply. Yu Luo Ying Dai, Yuanfang, do you still have the monthly votes? Eternal Sword Saint, Lord, I just saw it. I just spent 1. Torrential Waves, Yuanfang, vote quickly. Eternal Sword Saint, yes, Lord, I have voted. Yu Luo Ying Dai, Yuanfang, you are indeed an obedient child. Torrential Waves, Dog Aunt. Windy Yin Su Ya, Yuanfang, what do you think of Dog Aunt? Yu Luo Ying Dai, Lord, I think that Lang Lang has gone crazy on Buji Island. Request for leave, Xiaoxiang Yi Yu, what do you think of this, Yuanfang? Eternal Sword Saint, I think that Lang Lang has not gone crazy, it's just epilepsy. Request for leave, Xiaoxiang Yi Yu, General is right. Request for leave, Xiaoxiang Yi Yu, Grandpa Dao? Where is Grandpa Dao? Torrential Waves, Yuanfang, have you seen the second update? I was sweating profusely. Chapter 1120. Orchard Palace. Ever since Zi Sheqing left, Chu Yang had been organizing the battle. An intense arrangement. There was a total of people in the Orchard Palace: Chu Yang, Wu Qianqian, Mo Qingwu, Dong Wushang, Rui Butong, Mo Lei Meng Chaoran, Chu Le and the unconscious Yi Chuchen. Chu Yang had just broken through a few days ago and was a 7th grade sword saint. Dong Wushang had just broken through to become a 7th grade saber saint. Rui Butong was a 5th grade martial saint. Mo Lei was a 7th grade martial saint. Wu Qianqian was a 2nd grade martial saint. Mo Qingwu was a 1st grade martial saint. Chu Le was a 3rd grade martial saint, but her actual combat experience. Not to mention. Among all of them, the weakest in battle was Chu Yang's master, Meng Chaoran. 1st grade martial saint. Furthermore, he had broken through using the Tianyi divine technique during this period of time. One had to admit that this was a very uncomfortable thing. Especially the person involved, Meng Chaoran, who should be even more uncomfortable. However, Meng Chaoran was calm and composed. He didn't feel uncomfortable at all. It was as if he had long since become accustomed to this matter and did not take it to heart in the slightest. This kind of self-restraint made the juniors admire him endlessly. After all, not everyone could face such awkwardness. The first arrangement that Chu Yang made was to use his trump card. Chu Yang's trump card was, of course, Chu Le. Chu Le's poison techniques had already reached the martial saint level. Naturally, she had no actual combat experience at all. As for using poison to harm others, that was even more so the first time in her life. But she had Chu Yang by her side. There was also a sword spirit in Chu Yang's body. With these 3 added together, the power was almost comparable to Wu Jueqing's. What was more terrifying was that Chu Yang now had poisons that even Wu Jueqing couldn't compare to. Almost all the strange poisons in the world were under Chu Yang's control. The poisonous Nan of the poisonous flood dragon, the poisonous Nan of the human face rainbow spider, the toxicity of the black blood poisonous core vine. Anyway, other than the lust poison of the lust dragon, there were other poisons. Chu Yang contributed all of them to deal with the biggest crisis of his life this time. The entire Orchard Palace had 3 layers inside and outside. Chu Yang instructed Chu Le to use her 10,000 poisons mystic technique to set up several lines of defense. Shadowless poison, colorless poison, odorless poison, mixed poison, and so on. Especially outside Yi Chuchen's room, a few more layers of poison were added from the top to the ground and from the inside to the outside. These poisons were basically useless against supreme beings because of their protective Yuan Qi. He could get rid of all poisons. But for those below supreme martial artist, that would be a big deal. All in all, when Chula finally stopped, her poison technique had already been exhausted 3 times. Once it was exhausted, he ate the incomplete version of the heavy pill and did it again. The little girl was so tired that her face was blue and her lips were white. Of course, Chu Yang didn't stay idle while he was arranging the poison technique. He took Wu Qian and Rui Bu Tong with him. Mo Qingwu, Meng Chao Ran, Mo Lei and Dong Wushang's weapons were all kept away and tempered again. If a worker wants to do his job well, he must first sharpen his tools. Everything was done. The sky was slowly turning bright. Chu Yang divided them into groups: Meng Chaoran, Wu Qianqian, Mo Lei Chula Mo Qingwu, and Yi Chu Chen. They didn't need to care about anything else. And only himself, Dong Wushang, and Rui Bu Tong would face the incoming enemies. Under Dong Wushang's suggestion and Rui Bu Tong's strong request, Rui Bu Tong took charge of the first line of defense, the main door. This guy, Rui Bu Tong, who was only a 5th-grade martial saint, was used as a sharp knife. Rui Bu Tong rubbed his fists and said shamelessly, "Unless they don't come today, as long as they do, I will die at least 3 times. Raise my skills. Let them see how good I am at stealing." This sentence made Chu Yang, Dong Wushang, and Mo Lei speechless to the extreme. The snow in the sky continued to fall endlessly. It was as if heaven and earth were quiet, full of peace and tranquility. Finally, in the white snow, the sound of footsteps could be heard from afar. People in all kinds of clothes came from afar. They were densely packed and each of them had a serious look on their faces. There were dozens of people in each team: the Yi clan in black, the Xiao clan in green, the Lan clan in green, the Ling clan in white, the Shi clan in light green, the clan in purple, and the Zhuge clan in sackcloth. The Chen clan in yellow. The people from the 8 super clans arrived heavily, as if a huge mountain was pressing down on them. The leader of the Yi clan was Yi Se, a 3rd-grade supreme martial artist. These people were also led by him. He was the only supreme martial artist in the whole team. The other supreme martial artists had already rushed to Mount Xingyun to slay the Dao. Yi Se had insisted on coming personally to kill Meng Garin, so he stayed behind. Yi Shiyu shrank at the very back of the Yi clan team, looking somewhat helpless. The Xiao clan was led by an 8th-grade martial saint. Elder Xiao had already died in the previous battle. It was the same for the Lan clan and the Ling clan. The leader of the Ling clan was Meng Se. The leader of the Shi clan was an elder of the Shi clan called Shi Tianzhao. The leader of the Zhuge clan was naturally Zhuge Chongchong. The Chen clan had been slaughtered once. This time, there was no elder of the next generation to lead the team. With everyone gathered together, the Yi clan was naturally the most powerful one. The Zhuge clan, as the host, was ranked 2nd. The Shi clan was led by a direct descendant and was ranked 3rd and 4th. The other 4 clans were actually just hired thugs in this battle. Is such a battle worthy of us mobilizing such a large force? Shi Tianzhao muttered with some dissatisfaction. There isn't even a single expert. I heard that Chu Yang is only a 1st-grade monarch. Look at all of us. He turned his head back and waved his hand in a circle. Then, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. The weakest among us is a 2nd-grade monarch. Anyone who goes in will be able to defeat us. Zhuge Chongchong smiled lightly. Brother Shi, do you mean that the Shi clan is enough for everything? Shi Tianzhao nodded. I think that I alone am enough. The rest of the clans can really sit by the side and drink tea or something. Then, Brother Shi, do you mean that all the credit this time will be given to you alone? Zhuge Chongchong's eyelids twitched. Shi Tianzhao snorted. He didn't speak anymore. Zhuge Chongchong's words. It also revealed the reason why the clans were willing to lower themselves and sent so many people to deal with Chu Yang. Chu Yang's strength wasn't much, but it represented a powerful new force. In order to deal with Chu Yang's force, more than 700 supreme martial artists were mobilized. How could the word powerful describe it? Although there were supreme martial artists over there, the real key was here. Because Chu Yang was the core of these people. So Chu Yang's death was of great importance. It was definitely a great contribution. Such a great contribution. Who would be willing to fall behind? Seeing that they had already arrived at the Orchard Palace, everyone started arguing again about who should make the first move. Everyone wanted to make the first move because everyone was confident that no matter who made the first move, the others wouldn't have the chance to make the first move. At this moment, the door of the Orchard Palace opened. A skinny man walked out from the door, holding a dagger that shone with a cold light. He stood in front of the door and grinned at the crowd, saying, "Fuck your ancestors, they really came." This sentence immediately caused everyone to be stunned, and at the same time, their bellies to explode from anger. They had never seen such an asshole. He didn't even ask for the purpose of his visit and directly started cursing. Although they did come with bad intentions. "Who are you?" Shi Tianzhao was the first to speak. "My surname is Rui." Rui Butong pursed his lips and suddenly raised his head to shout, "Awu awu." Everyone was stunned. This asshole, was he a wolf that became a demon? Just as they thought this, they heard Rui Butong suddenly change his voice and roar, "Dog aunt! Dog aunt!" Shi Tianzhao was puzzled. What was wrong with this guy? What she did not know was that Chu Yang and Dong Wushang, who were in the Orchard Palace, had a knowing and warm smile on their faces when they heard the cry, "Awu, dog aunt." What Rui Butong was imitating now was Luo Kedi and Ji Mo. It seemed that this thief god Rui was missing some of his brothers. He actually started to imitate their habits in front of the enemy. After Rui Butong finished shouting, his aura suddenly changed. He became elegant and confident, smiling faintly. With his hands behind his back, he took 2 steady steps. His eyes shone with wisdom as he said, "No matter how many troops you have, I only need one trick to defeat you." Inside, Chu Yang smiled. "Mo Tianji." Dong Wushang laughed. Shi Tianzhao said angrily, "What the hell are you doing?" Rui Butong straightened his body and suddenly became tall and straight. He was lonely and cold, sharp and awe-inspiring. His eyes looked at Shi Tianzhao like the tip of a sword. He coldly flicked his sword and recited slowly, "One sword to the peak, life and death, victory and defeat vanish in a blink of an eye. Where can there be a soulmate in the world? When I want to look back, I've already forgotten all about her." This time, inside, Chu Yang and Dong Wushang didn't smile. Instead, they revealed deep longing. Jiyu Duxing. However, the people of the 8 great clans opposite Rui Butong were all stunned. This guy. What was going on? After coming out, he scolded and then changed into 4 different forms and 4 different tones. Was he singing an opera? Rui Butong stretched out his fingers and made a flower-picking smile gesture. He looked at his fingers gently and said affectionately, "When the viburnum flowers bloom, all the other flowers wither." Suddenly, his expression changed again. He became proud and arrogant, lofty and domineering. He shouted, "Who in the world doesn't know me, the evil duke?" Shi Tianzhao said mockingly, "So it's the evil duke." "Evil indeed. Evil as if you're crazy." Rui Butong laughed. Suddenly, he stroked his hair coquettishly and looked at himself in the mirror. But he raised his eyes, one high and one low. His lips turned up and he asked Shi Tianzhao very seriously, "Do you think I'm handsome? Am I very handsome?" When he said this, even Meng Chaoran couldn't help but laugh. Chu Yang and Dong Wushang slapped their thighs and laughed. This voice was vivid and lifelike. It was Tan Tan's extremely narcissistic voice. On the opposite side, even Yi Se, a 3rd-grade supreme martial artist, was dumbfounded. Everyone sighed inwardly. How unlucky. They came to kill the enemy with a murderous aura, but they met a lunatic the moment they arrived. At this moment, the lunatic opposite shouted, "Brothers, let's kill the enemy together. Let's fight." Good news, the world-defying heavens has opened a group. The group number is 138482689. The administrators are all in place. Students who want to join the group, please do so quickly. Come and join the world-defying heavens with us. Take note, do not join the group repeatedly. Otherwise, there will be no point in us opening more groups. New students, the world-defying heavens welcomes you. Gee, just like the title of the chapter, it's already the end of the month. Brothers, let's fight. Requesting monthly votes. Gee, to be continued. Chapter 11:21. After Rui Butong finished, he suddenly smiled at Shi Tianzhao. "What's your name?" Shi Tianzhao was startled and said, "Shi Tianzhao." Rui Butong nodded slowly and said, "Shi Tianzhao? Yes, I know. Go to hell." He rushed over with his sword. Shi Tianzhao and the rest had already seen that although this person in front of them was a little crazy, he was indeed an expert. He was at least a martial saint, so they were all secretly on guard. But they didn't expect him to attack without any warning. A moment ago, he was still pretending to be crazy, and the next moment, he was asking for their names. Then, he attacked. The blade on the other side was cold. Shi Tianzhao quickly retreated. Behind him, the two middle martial saints immediately went forward. Two clangs were heard as they unsheathed their swords, with a hint of sarcasm on their faces. Both of them had higher cultivation than Rui Butong, so they could see at a glance that this guy who was rushing over was only a 5th-grade martial saint. To the two of them, it was a piece of cake. "Ah!" Rui Butong rushed forward with a loud roar. His voice was loud and his body was strange. He had a tragic style of "even if I die, I'll drag someone down with me." The two middle martial saints fiercely thrust out their swords. The sword light trembled and a ray of white light flashed across the sky. Rui Butong rushed over, his short sword meeting the two long swords without fear. The two middle martial saints had a cruel look in their eyes. A 5th-grade martial saint actually dared to fight a middle martial saint. He must be tired of living. "Watch how we kill you with one strike." The people around them were all people with good eyesight. They knew that they couldn't lose this battle. They all crossed their arms and watched with smiles, as if they were watching two big bad wolves ravaging a little white rabbit. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the three swords crossed. Two long and one short. Two sharp sounds rang out, as if a sharp sword had chopped off two thin pieces of wood. Under the incredulous gazes of the two saint-level experts, the two swords were split into 4 pieces in an instant. Then, Rui Butong's short sword ruthlessly slashed across their throats like a venomous dragon. Blood spurted out. Rui Butong rushed into the crowd without a word. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. This was truly a sudden and unexpected development. No one had expected that the short sword in Rui Butong's hand would be such a divine weapon that could sever iron and chop iron. Not only were the two middle martial saints caught off guard, the people behind him were basically watching the show with crossed arms. Who knew that there would be such a sudden turn of events? Two martial saint-level experts facing a 5th-grade martial saint were actually killed without even being able to withstand a single blow. Caught off guard, Rui Butong rushed into the crowd. This was really a tiger into a flock of sheep. Uploads update. Originally, they were definitely not so weak. But now, a series of screams rang out. Rui Butong's short sword slashed the throats of 7 or 8 people and stabbed into the hearts of 5 people. There were also a few who dodged quickly, but Rui Butong chopped off their arms and legs. Swoosh. In the pure white snow, it suddenly appeared to be a bright color. Swoosh. Swoosh. Oh, Butong. Finally, he was stopped and trapped in a tight encirclement. Shi Tianzhao managed to escape with his life. His entire body was drenched in cold sweat and he was terrified. If it wasn't for the two saint-level experts from his clan blocking the attack and him retreating to the side, he would have been cut into 7 or 8 pieces by now. Still in shock, he shouted crazily, "Attack together! Kill him! Kill him! Kill him! He! Needless to say, the other experts had already swarmed forward, attacking with sabers, swords, fists, and palms. Rui Butong shouted and fought crazily, exchanging injuries for injuries. "Since I've come out, I don't plan to go back alive. Kill, kill, kill." Almost in the blink of an eye, his body was covered in blood. He had lost count of how many swords he had taken. The few martial saints attacked together. They attacked crazily. With a bang, Rui Butong attacked. He actually stretched out his hand and broke his short sword into 2 pieces. He laughed loudly. "I'd rather die than give you this sword. I'll destroy it." Before he finished his words, he was already thrown into the air like a ball. Blood gushed out of his body and he was no longer breathing. This was exactly what everyone was thinking. Who wouldn't covet such a divine weapon? Who would have thought that this guy would be so ruthless? He actually destroyed this sword when he knew that he was no match for them and that he would die. He was really a bastard to the extreme. The martial saints rushed forward in exasperation. With a few bangs, Rui Butong's body was beaten into a pile of minced meat. However, his sudden attack had actually killed 23 experts and crippled 5 of them. In the Orchard Palace, although Chu Yang knew that Rui Butong had the ability to not die, he was still furious and almost wanted to rush out. Dong Wushang held him down. It's okay. Seeing that Rui Butong was dead, Shi Tianzhao and the others couldn't hold back anymore. They roared, charge in, kill Chu Yang. Everyone roared, and the various clans rushed over like a tidal wave. With a bang, the door was kicked open. Some of them even flew into the sky. The Orchard Palace wasn't big, but it was filled with people in an instant. Only the people from the clan and the Yi clan didn't bother to fight and stayed outside. The next moment, bangs, 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 all the people who flew in from the sky and were experts below 8th grade martial saints suddenly fell down like dumplings. When they landed on the ground, they were no longer breathing. Those who rushed in from the ground, those with lower cultivation, also swayed and suddenly fell down. Then, their bodies turned purple and they stopped breathing. Everyone was shocked. Poison. Damn it. Retreat. Everyone retreated like a tide. Shi Tianzhao, Zhuge Changchang, and the others had treasures that could prevent poison, so they were not poisoned. However, they were so scared that they almost lost control of their bladder. There were more than 500 people who came, and almost 400 of them rushed in. Now, there were less than 50 people who came out. 350 people. Just like that, they lay on the snowy ground of the Orchard Palace. There were clothes of all colors, and they just lay there with hideous faces. They were no longer breathing. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, a tall and sturdy young man suddenly appeared in the Orchard Palace. The moment he appeared, it was as if a majestic mountain had appeared. Just by standing there, his innate heroic aura was undoubtedly displayed. His right hand was holding a large black saber that was upside down. He raised his head and looked outside the door. As if he didn't see the people outside, he walked slowly to the people lying in the courtyard. Suddenly, he raised his hand and spat on his palm. He muttered to himself, "Boss said that to prove the enemy's death, it's best to cut off his head and see if he can still move." He raised his broadsword and chopped off the head of a corpse in green on the ground. Then, his body danced and turned into a flash of lightning. In the courtyard, more than 300 corpses were beheaded one by one. Then, he kicked them one by one. More than 300 heads were piled up in the courtyard. It was a tall pile. After finishing all this, he suddenly stroked his broadsword and laughed loudly. With a broadsword in hand, I can chop off the head of a martial saint with a smile. How delightful, delightful. Outside the door, Shi Tianzhao and the others were so angry that their eyes almost popped out. Just as they were about to reprimand him, there were a few bangs. The few 7th grade martial saints who had followed them out swayed and fell down. Then, more and more people fell to the ground. Among the people who had rushed in, those who had retreated and fell down, there were actually close to 30 people. Everyone's face turned purple. After twitching a few times, they stopped breathing. A few 7th grade martial saints struggled in pain for a long time before they stopped breathing. Their cultivations were profound, but they couldn't withstand the effects of dozens of poisons that Chu Yang had carefully arranged. From the time they rushed in through the gate to the courtyard, they had already been poisoned at least 3 times, and one time was mixed poison. They had persevered and ran out, but they were already poisoned. They couldn't hold on any longer. Now, only 24 people from the few big clans who had rushed in were still standing. These people were all grade 8 martial saints and above. Every one of them had enough cultivation to resist the poisonous fog. However, when 350 people were reduced to 24 people in an instant, this huge contrast almost caused everyone to collapse. The sudden change caused everyone's bodies to tremble. Snowflakes hit their faces, chilling them to the bone. Everyone also felt that their hearts were as cold as the snowflakes. There was fear in their eyes. What kind of poison was this? So domineering. Everyone looked at the courtyard with chills running down their spines. However, they didn't notice that behind them, there was a corpse that was almost minced meat, emitting a faint red light. After Dong Wushang finished chopping off the heads, he took a few steps forward and stabbed the blade into the ground of the courtyard. With both hands on the hilt, he raised his head to look at the crowd outside the door. A powerful aura emanated from his body just like that. Suddenly, he roared, "Who's here to die?" Along with this loud shout, a strand of fierce saber intent suddenly tore through the sky. An 8th-grade martial saint from the Lan clan collided with this sharp saber intent. He only felt a tightness in his chest and spat out a mouthful of blood. Yi Shiyu's face was solemn. He muttered, "Saber saint, at least 7th grade. Meng Se sighed. When I first met him in the Three Heavens, he was only a saber emperor. Now, he's already a saint. At that time, I already felt that this person's future was limitless and tried my best to invite him. However, the law enforcement officers beat me to it. I didn't expect his advancement to be so terrifying." Right at this moment, Yi Se of the Yi family took a step forward and opened his arms. With a loud boom, the surrounding walls of the Orchard Palace collapsed neatly. Bricks and stones flew out in all directions, and the place became a flat piece of land. His hands continued to dance in the air. Suddenly, a strong wind blew. The strong wind swept the snowflakes into the Orchard Palace, blowing away all the corpses and heads in the courtyard along with the thick layer of snow. They all disappeared. It was all clean. Everyone's eyes lit up. After this, no matter how powerful the poison fog was, it should have been blown away, right? Second update. Continue to write, begging for votes. Arth. I'm so helpless. I'm only a few dozen votes away. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.